Alex Schmidt. He is a comedian and writer and podcaster and all-around great content creator originally from the Chicagoland area. You might know him from his shows Secretly Incredibly Fascinating, as well as his work on previous projects like Cracked or his appearances on Jeopardy. But we're here to find out what makes Alex Schmidt not so secretly incredibly fascinating.
Oh,
Oh, that's the first time I've started my podcast differently than I normally do it, but I just felt like I had to.
oh, ever?
Yeah,
Wow,
I
that's an
normally
honor.
do. I normally am just bad at starting the podcast and I don't know how to start it. But here
Yeah.
I wanted to ape you
Well,
and your
thanks.
intros to Secretly Incredibly Fascinating, because here's the thing is one, they're very neat and you're very welcoming on your show.
Oh,
Like it
good.
was naturally welcoming, which is very, very not, it's a very alien concept to me as a being of pure energetic aggression. Also, and it's something that I noticed when I first met you, but it's also something that I it's like sort of like reinforced every time I hear you talk is you have the most pleasant possible version of the Chicagoland accent I've ever heard.
Thank you.
Has anybody
Uh,
ever told you that before?
Jeff, you're the best. And I find that people, and maybe it's partly a New York State area thing where it's kind of Great Lakes and kind of a similar voice, but I've found people don't notice my Chicago accent unless I say specific words such as Chicago, because it's got that
Yeah,
like
I
right in
know.
the
Yeah.
middle. And then the other day, somebody brought up the Green Bay Packers and the Chicago Bears. And my response to that, I didn't notice, but it kind of lapsed into a much more regional way of speaking because I was
You
just
literally went,
flashing
duh,
back to
Bears.
every Packers crushing of the Bears for my entire life.
That's your Vietnam, is
Yeah,
watching
I just activate.
some form of
Yeah,
terrible human being slash decent quarterback just demolishing your team every time.
yeah,
Wouldn't it be great if the
yeah.
Packers could get like one normal dude quarterback?
That, yeah, like the entire region was watching Brett Favre biologically age and be like, as soon as he's gone, baby, as soon as he's gone. And then they got a quarterback who is more consistent and skilled. Like,
And also like just like they're differently bad people. Like not bad. I don't know if Aaron Rodgers would, I wouldn't necessarily classify him as a bad person. I
yeah,
find him to be like, what if Joe Rogan could throw a tight spiral? And there's
yeah,
that.
yeah.
He's I don't think he's a particularly brilliant person and was shocked when they were like, what if he's the Jeopardy host? And I was like,
I know.
calm down. Like,
And
in
isn't
what
he?
world were you like, who's super smart? Aaron Rodgers.
And I feel like I've heard his whole family doesn't talk to him,
Smart.
which like maybe all his family members are bad or something, but if they're not, then that's like interesting about him that his whole family won't talk to him.
It's doubtful that it's the family's issue.
Yeah.
I mean, it could be. It could be like they all asked him for money and he wouldn't do it. And he was like, pick yourself up by your bootstraps. But reality is they're probably just like, yeah, hey, this whole vaccine thing. Uncle Aaron,
Right.
don't listen to Uncle Aaron. He's really good at throwing a football sometimes.
Right.
So like, but don't make that out to somebody who uses like logically critical thinking. Like he's good on
It's
the fly to read a pattern, but
it's so funny. I was watching TikTok this morning and it was a clip of Tim Walz doing a campaign stop where he like spoke to football players at a high school or something. But he did some kind of patter about the true thing where it's like so many of us just wish we could hang out with our family at Thanksgiving and watch a football game and not have politics come up. And like Aaron Rodgers' family can't just talk to him about football, his job. Like
right.
other stuff will butt in and be
Yeah.
weird. It's the most extreme version of
Yeah.
that.
They'll like, it must be nice to have a Thanksgiving off. I know you were playing Thanksgiving all the time. He's like, I want to talk about what's going on with child trafficking. You're like, real quick, do you know what's going on with child trafficking? Or do you think you know what's going on with child trafficking? Did Jim
Right.
Caviezel tell you what to say about child trafficking? And Brett Favre is actually just a bad person. Like Brett Favre is, I think,
Yeah, much more
when you
so,
look
kind
at
of.
it, like, you see like bad people with fan bases, and you're just like, why? And they're just like, oh, like, he's a
Right.
bad person. Like that's the thing with Trump, I think, where it's just where you're like, at this
Yeah.
point in time, you have to just like that he's bad.
Yeah, right. There's no more like information to learn about Donald Trump.
Yeah,
Like the information's out and you know now.
I've personally I've given amnesty to one-time 2016 Trump voters.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
personally, and you don't have to do that. One, if you're listening to this and you disagree with me, go ahead. Just if you're on the Patreon, just don't.
Right. Right.
Please don't. But like, look, in 2016, Trump did a lot of things that Hillary didn't do, and one of the big ones was diagnosing problems. He did not have any
Mm,
cures for them, but at least he
right.
addressed them and he made people seen. He also was clearly a bad person there, but some people were like, "Yeah, I get he's a bad guy, but he's the only one that would said he'd protect my job." So like, I guess I kind of got to gamble on that so I can feed my family. And then he lost they lost their jobs anyway. So, but I give amnesty to those first timers. But if by
Yeah.
2020, if you were voting for him, I'm like, oh, you're just a huge piece of shit at this point. I'm like, you're just a bad person because you saw all the
Yeah.
shit he did, and you're like, love this guy. I love, I love all the bad. And now, even now, he's like, I like the insurrection thing. I got to be 100% honest. I'm digging the
Right.
insurrection thing, the
Yeah,
fake injury with the shooting.
that is it's like only gotten weirder too. Every new person who's like, now I'm a Trump supporter, like what? Like when someone like Elon Musk is like, I was pretty in the middle until very recently. Like, how is very recently when you get on board? When he's
Yeah,
only a dick and not running anything and a
it's
monster.
and that's the part where like Elon is not realizing that he himself has evolved into the monster that he once spoke out against.
Yeah,
Even though
yeah,
he's always kind of sucked, but like now he's just like he like mega sucks. Also,
yeah.
it's weird that we got very this all this conversation came about because I was like, you have a Chicago accent. So the past that we rolled down
Yeah.
here on Jeff Has Cool Friends. Alex, I have known you for quite some time. I've known you since essentially since you moved to LA.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Oh,
And I think I met you through Adam, but and then we got to know each other so well. Yeah.
yeah, you did the new guy in Cracked. I think I was recording your on your second day. You was like your second
Oh,
day in the office was when I met
probably.
you, and then
Yeah.
within like a 2 weeks, I think we had recorded a show together, I believe.
Like right away. It was great.
And
And yeah.
you were one of those people that were like, "This is a person that I would like to have in my social circle." Social circle, my social circle. Dr. Lecter. I don't know why I had to do like I don't know why I had to do like a bad Jodie Foster in my social circle, Dr. Lecter. Right?
And and I heard you
Ouch.
say that, and I was like, someday I'm gonna know what those words mean. I'm gonna keep digging. I'm gonna keep getting to know him.
Lewis Friend, Irish Hillfat, Fool's Gold. Your handcrafted Dr. Lecter. Also, my
Yeah,
Holly
yeah.
Hunter impression is the same as Jodie Foster. You're trying to tell me this
I
is Granny's
I
peach
feel
tea?
like that's fair. I'm only realizing how similar those voices are now.
They're
That's great.
very similar
It's a good insight.
actors. Yeah. I'm
Yeah.
Holly Hunter. I'm Jodie Foster. Like you can see it. It's also like slightly like a slightly feminine George W. Bush impression. We're gonna get him. That's right, Dr. Lecter. Saddam Hussein tried to kill my dad. So I'm going after him, Dr. Lecter. I could see that. This is weird. This is a weird show already. This might be the weirdest show. I started
No.
it weird.
Well, it's always so good seeing you too, because I don't live in LA anymore, and so when I do get to see you, it's awesome.
I
Yeah.
think the last time I physically saw you, like we were at a Chicago LA game.
Oh, that baseball game?
I think that might
Yeah,
have been the last
probably.
time because you had moved, I think, relatively soon after that.
Yeah, yeah, because and yeah, I remember trying to make a point of going because it was a rare White Sox at Dodgers, and that's
Right?
interleague, so it doesn't happen a
Oof.
lot.
You must be having a real rough go in the baseball world this summer, huh?
This is the first year I have not watched any White Sox baseball, and really just baseball. Like sometimes the Yankees are on television in a business here, but yeah, ever since I began to watch baseball, I've watched the White Sox every year. And like it's been a pretty crushing previous year or two too. And so I said to myself, like, if these guys don't get off to an at least moderately decent start, I'm gonna see what it's like to not watch them at all. And that was the right choice.
Do
So
you think any of this slump has anything to do with Tim Anderson getting knocked out by the weakest overhand right from Ramirez on the Indians that I have ever seen?
it's possible.
Because
Tim Anderson is like a Greek tragedy at this point. It's like a really difficult figure because that was a non-punch that decked him, and it
He
was
got him front knuckles.
yeah.
I've watched it a lot. I've watched that punch a lot, analyzing it. He got him with front knuckles, like
And I trust
knocking
you on
on
the
the door of
technique
Tim Anderson's
analysis.
chin. Yeah.
Like shaving a haircut and then he falls down. Yeah. But yeah, and then like kind of simultaneously, and this wasn't really in media, I think just because it's sad, but it turned out he had like a at least second lady and children in his life, if not like a whole second family. And so he was on the peak of a home run he had in the Field of Dreams game off of the Yankees, which is just the regular season, but like a great vibe.
Yeah, it's a great
And
vibe.
then boy, he's just had a rough time. I think he's out of the league now.
I would think so. I mean, he was also famously known as one of the dirtiest players as far as like going out of his way from a defensive kick to like really mess with runners and accidentally
Yeah.
hurt, if not injure them. I know that was like a thing. I occasionally, like, my YouTube algorithm occasionally suggests a lot of like baseball fights and stuff. Like, nobody's surprised at that, right? I don't think anybody on the planet would be surprised that my algorithm somehow finds me onto like John Boy Media talking about a fist fight or whatever between two players. And one of the things I saw was it was like a history of, it was like Hines Ward, the Pittsburgh Steelers
Mm,
receiver, who was known for being literally the dirtiest player in football by doing legal but cheap blocks and
yeah,
injury inducing damage on people, like purposefully so, but like within the
there are those
confines of the
guys.
rules. And so him getting knocked out, like apparently the rest of the MLB was stoked.
That would make sense.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was like when
Like,
A-Rod got a catcher's mitt stuffed in his face by Jason Varitek in 2004. And everyone's like, well, mad
yeah,
about
wow.
that.
And Tim Anderson's weird because he had one, I don't think they threw punches, but there was like a game I was at because it was White Sox at Yankees. And it was Tim Anderson and briefly a Yankee, Josh Donaldson, almost got into it. And that's like the one guy where the league's like, I guess I like Josh Donaldson less. But other than that, people were probably pretty
Yeah.
stoked
I feel
about
like him
any Tim
fighting
Anderson conflict.
Wander. I guess I have to vote for Tim Anderson on this one, but woof.
Right, right.
I know that we're talking a lot of sports, and a lot of you that listening, I've heard you don't even like sports. But to
I've
those of
heard
you that
you.
don't know, Wander Franco, the guy that I brought up, was considered one of the best Tampa Bay Devil Rays prospects of all time.
Yeah, yeah.
And like Tampa Bay Devil Rays prospects, such as Josh Hamilton, something tragic will happen. And that tragedy for Wander Franco is that he is most likely a pedophile.
Yeah. So
And so his cards were like very valuable, and then they became very not valuable, which was very interesting.
yeah, yeah.
You got the rest of it. All the rest of the sports talk will have. I know you guys didn't come in here to talk sports, but it's tough. You've already started the episode, you idiot, jerk. You're stuck. So secretly
Yeah.
fascinating.
Yeah.
This is a result of the cracked purge of late 2017. Is that right?
Partly. Yeah.
And
Sure.
then you're like, well, time to do my own thing. Is that kind of
Yeah.
just?
So yeah, cracked. There was a giant purge at the end of 2017, and oddly, I was not let go in that, along with like four other people, basically. And then shortly after that, new owners bought the like property, but then gradually laid off those last of us too.
Like you knew it was coming, right? Like that was one of those things where you saw it and you were like, no, this ain't gonna be last. Because I think even Logan,
Yeah.
like, hey, like I have the job. Logan Trent, he's like, I got the job, but like
Right.
I was working with the assumption that I would not have that job next week.
Yeah. And I was like briefly optimistic, but it turned out those guys were like liars and scummy, the new owners, and also
Wait,
still
venture
own it.
capitalists?
So yeah.
Wait,
But
you're
like
trying to
very
tell me that
nickel
rich
and
men
dime
was
venture capitalists too. It's very weird. And so yeah, and then they let me go, and then I spent like about 2 months thinking about just in life in general, what should I do next? And I felt like I should make a really good podcast with a better and new premise. And so I did that.
Yeah. And it started very, very good. It was a solo pod for quite some time. And then
Yeah.
within a relatively recent time space, because like the last time I talked to you was on the previous version of what you would call this show. the
Yeah, yeah.
spiritual prequel to this show. And it was really just sort of like secretly incredibly fascinating. This is an Alex Schmidt joint. You can check him out independently on all these things. And since then you have moved to Max Fun, which is
Yeah,
a great
it's
consortium.
been
Is
awesome.
it a consortium? Is that what we'd call it?
It's really nice because it's a company that's a podcast network, but artists own their own shows. So it's just a partnership kind of thing. Like it's still my show. And then they also helped me bring in Katie Golden to co-host it, who's just fantastic. And
That
so
was
yeah.
so for the my comics brained people, Max Fun would be like an Image Comics, like we're the publisher, but you're the owner of the book itself, kind of a thing.
That's probably right. Yeah. Yeah.
Like Todd
And
McFarlane Spawn was an Image comic, but Todd McFarlane owned Spawn. You know,
oh, no, I like
Spawn.
Image Comics. I've heard of them. I don't know anything about them. That's great.
Image
Um,
Comics was created by the major Marvel artists at the time that were realizing that they were not getting any ownership of any of their work, really. And they were like,
yeah.
hey, we're just making you a lot of money. And so you had like Jim Lee, Todd McFarlane, Rob Liefeld, all
Oh, good for
you,
them. Yeah.
they just were like, we're gonna make our own company. Okay, so
Yeah.
then you said Max Fun because Katie Golden is somebody that you worked with.
Yeah, I met her initially through Cracked, and she had been a social media intern, but was also already doing a bunch of amazing stuff outside of it. And
Like
they I remember
the bird
people
rights.
being yeah, I remember everybody being very surprised that she was available to come and, and work with us because she's so cool and amazing. And
Yes. Great show, Creature
yeah,
Feature, another great podcast.
it's the best. Yeah, it's amazing animal information and then humor and also like a really nice lens on animals being like us or different from us in such interesting ways. It's my favorite show about just science or animals or anything.
I like doing it. I love going on the show and doing the show because
Yeah.
like I always get new information on something because she'll always ask like, is there any direction you want to go with like any animals you want to talk about? And so that grants me an opportunity to be like, yeah, I sure would like to learn more about fisher cats, and which are the
Yeah.
most terrifying sounding animal in the animal world, by the way. Now,
Yeah.
I'm going to ask you an honest question here, and I expect an honesty, but I also know that you're one of the nicest people I've ever met. So I feel like the honest answer is probably going to seem like the fake nice answer.
And thank you.
With when the idea was proposed of having a co-host, and no longer being the person who was strictly piloting, how were your feelings during that proposal of a co-host versus after having worked with Katie for so long and finding this sort of sync? Like, how was that? Because like some people are real control freaks. Like I'm a control freak, and bringing a co-host onto like this show, I would be like, I don't want that. So
Cool.
like, how
Yeah.
were you with the idea of the proposal of a co-host? Were you looking for a co-host? Did they say, we think your show would benefit from a like, and now that
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
have been with her, I mean, I know your answer is already with that is I love working with Katie. She's amazing because you would love working with Katie and she's amazing. But nondescript co-host idea, like how did you feel about that in the beginning?
That's a good question. It was a cool process because like there's no set standard way of joining Maximum Fun. It's a very small organization, and so it's just they'll approach you or you'll approach them and then you start talking about it. And in the process of it, they said, we want to bring the show onto the network, and this is our one big creative idea, and you can take it or leave it. So it was always a very like open, not necessary element. And Katie was already the most frequent guest on the podcast. And so we'd done a bunch of other
Okay.
stuff together too. And so I felt like that was the best of all worlds. Like it was the most natural way of just shaping it going forward. And probably the kind of way I would have tried to launch it in the first place if I had just had
Okay.
the like infrastructure and setup to do it.
All
Yeah.
right. Because I always think about that like with a lack of hindsight, like the honesty of going back to something and looking at it from the moment and going forward. I always do wonder
Yeah.
like how people are feeling in one moment versus looking back and be like that was a fucking brilliant move. I love
Yeah, I think it was a really big upgrade, and it's also good because we can still also have additional people join us. Because I I did have the thought, like, will I miss the just variety of lots of other friends like you,
Yeah.
like coming through and being on the
Yeah.
episodes, and we just still do that, me and Katie and other friends. So
So
it's great.
you did drop the guest every week, every
Yeah.
episode format, which thanks. No, no, I did notice that, but you do like have episodes. I recently, in going back, because I was doing my research, and of course I love the show. I don't have
Thanks.
time to listen to every episode all the time, but I
Yeah, sure.
love squeezing them in when I can. I mean, everybody that does this job says the exact same thing and they mean it, which is, I wish I had more time to listen. I'm too busy
Oh, sure.
making these things, but when I do
Same.
listen, it's a delight. I listened to a great episode with Jeff's cool friend Jordan Morris, very
Nice.
early guest of
Yeah.
the show, on soda cans, which I found very interesting. But I also listened
Oh, good.
to pinball tables, which was interesting for a couple reasons, not the least of which I actually found myself yelling a lot of things into my phone about, like, that's not what that specific thing is, but I totally get, like that kind of a thing where I was like, or you actually covered something very interesting that I've been telling people for a long time, and you actually you like confirmed that for me, which is like, whenever you talk to somebody from our generation, I'm a little bit older than you, but we're both millennials.
Yeah.
I'm just an eldest millennial. Whenever you talk to people our age about pinball, they go, "You know what my favorite game is?" And I just go, "It's Adam's Family."
Yeah,
And
yeah.
they say, "Oh my God, how did you know?" And I was like, "Because it's probably the one you played the most, because it's the most produced game of all time." And they're like, "Really?" And I'm like, "Yeah, it's not the best. It's just, I get, like, the odds are that's the answer."
My
That's
my
like if,
Pizza Hut had Adam's Family Pinball and Cruis'n USA, and that was it.
yeah,
And I
yeah,
loved
like,
both of them so deeply.
yes. And so people like that nostalgia of this is the only one. And it was one thing you did miss about why it was so prevalent,
Yeah.
is that 1991 was roughly the height of the arcades.
Oh,
Arcades are
sure.
going to
Yeah,
start
yeah.
falling apart once the 16-bit systems take hold and people can
Right.
game from home more often. So the Sega and Super Nintendo actually did a lot of damage against arcades. So, but
Oh, that makes
arcades
sense,
were
yeah.
very much at their height around that time. I mean, obviously arcades were like crazy in the early 80s as well. Like, we get that.
Yeah.
But there was a dip and then it came back and arcades were really popular. And so that's another reason that you had really high numbers of pinball machines around that era as well.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's just a neat little fun fact for you as well. And
And you texted that you're in a pinball league. I had not
I
known
am.
that. That's awesome.
I am. I kind of was like, when I was listening to this, I was like, I wish he knew I was in a pinball league. I would have loved to have been a guest. And then
Yeah.
I realized I don't know if I would have made a good guest,
Okay.
because when you're doing Secretly Incredibly Fascinating, I don't think the show itself would benefit from an expert.
Yeah. Yeah, I think especially I really love doing the research and do it as
Mhm,
comprehensively as possible, and I think I can pull together a lot of expert voices through that
mhm.
and relate what they said. But we would just do the format different if I had an expert on. I would just ask them a bunch of questions and that would be the whole thing.
I noticed that when I was doing a Behind the Bastards, that some people didn't. I did some on Russian history, which was actually one of the main focuses of
Yeah,
my degree. And I realized, I was like, oh, some people really don't like that I'm bringing that information ahead of Robert. That he's
sure,
saying
sure, yeah.
something and then I'm like, "Oh yeah, and then this happens." And then he's like, "And then that happens." And I was like, yeah, they probably find that annoying. Like, they probably want Robert to be the one giving the information and they want me to be the color guy. And I'm like, that makes sense. Like, that, of course.
Cool. Yeah,
So,
yeah.
like, like bringing somebody who would have some level of expertise. And I don't know if I did imply that I am an expert in pinball. I very much am not.
Oh,
That
okay,
that
cool.
needs
Yeah.
to be very clear. That I am not. I know friends. I mean, Ian from Nudge Magazine. Nudge is the pinball magazine that exists out in this world. It's a sort of fun and unique, sort of more avant-garde pinball thing, and it's really cool. There's
Cool.
a
Yeah.
great subculture on pinball, and so I was very excited to see what you had there. And there's also a great movie on the man who saved pinball, which you should definitely watch.
Oh, yeah, I saw clips
Yeah.
about it. Yeah, it was neat to see, like, just being still around. Like, it's a very recent story that had that
Yeah.
70s change.
I was very excited to see that, and was very, but that led me to a question, which is, do you often get, like, how often do you get actually comments or emails or reviews about the show? Or do you ever get stuff? Because it's not that you're getting stuff
Oh,
wrong, because you're not. You do not speak with wrong information. That's something that Alex Schmidt
oh,
is
thanks.
very aware of. I mean, you don't have to thank me for just noticing that, but yeah, like you choose your
No,
words very wisely. I that
yeah.
it's anybody who knows Alex Schmidt knows that. But do you get people that try to be very corrective, or that if you did maybe miss something or misspeak, like how often does actually happen? Or are you just so nice that people don't want to offend you?
I have been really glad that we set up a Discord for the show. And because with a Discord, you get a bunch of different channels for a bunch of different things. And I made two channels for informational stuff. One is called Helpful Corrections, which is to just, I really want to know if there's something wrong. And then I don't know if people know with the podcast, you can go and change your file and upload a new file into that same slot, and you can like put a corrected show up. So
Hmm.
I'm very excited when people have an actual correction. And then there's another channel called Fun Tips, which is, we didn't say anything out loud with our words that is inaccurate, but you have another story, another thing to add. And then
Yeah.
that's been a perfect place for people to just like, I think it's been a real feature of the community having that.
That's great, because the other option is to tell you on Twitter, and that's annoying.
And I stopped using Twitter last year, and I check the page like once in a while. And I've also been finding I like lapsed into looking at it again with election stuff going on. We don't need to talk about the election more, but
It's
like
secretly.
now that I don't actively post on Twitter, most of the like notifications are someone being a and like when I was posting stuff, I'd get interactions about the fun stuff I posted. And now that I don't, Twitter is just a trash can for
I have really embraced sort of the counter aspect of Twitter, where like if Elon
counter,
Musk
like a
posts something, I'm
reverse
like, hey, you're a
counter. Yeah.
idiot, right? Thanks for letting me use this platform to say you're a idiot. Um, you dumb.
Yeah, because I really am earnestly excited to learn if we have anything wrong in the show, but and also sometimes people send me a myth that I found out is a myth in the research, and then I just let them know. But so it's the actually issue is not all that big. It's not much of a problem
That's
that way.
so
Yeah,
Midwestern of you. Because for me, I'm always like, we can fight about this if you want. I remember
right.
somebody like actually me about something, and like they weren't meaning to be like know-it-all-y about it, but it was about like I was watching something that was dubbed, but I was watching it with English subtitles, and I was talking about how drastically different they are. And I had intimated in the conversation that it was because the subtitles were probably written before the dubbing was localized. So somebody interpreted the
Wow.
Japanese into subtitles, and then it
Yeah.
was dubbed in English, and so they had to localize it and make it a little bit different, which can oftentimes drastically change that. And I did say that. And this is on me of like, I need to calm down. Somebody said that, and I was like, yeah, I said that. Like, I know. Thank you. Thank you so much for telling me the thing that I made it a point to bring up. I'm like, that's a move. And I try hard not to do that. I don't know.
No,
That's a little New England
and
of me, I think.
I feel like a lot of it is also just that on their end they're busy or doing laundry, so or there's like a noise like right when you said the thing that they think you didn't say, but then also on your end they need to understand that you're receiving such a volume of feedback and in such an asynchronous way, and in a like the human mind does not have an easy time of being like overly gracious about that, you know, like
I
it's
think
hard.
one of the things, and this is actually because I do a show with Tom Ryman called Tom and Jeff Watch Batman.
Woo,
And it's just fun. It's a
it's
fun
pretty
show.
good.
We have a lot of fun. It's a nightmare to prepare for. It is legitimately the hardest podcast
Would you
that I.
call it a dark nightmare?
You're a bad person. You're a very bad person. But so like, it's my job to have my finger on the pulse of Batman media, right? Like,
Yeah, yeah.
but then like a new thing will be like announced, And then my mentions, like 45 things will be like, hey, did you which is fine. It's great. And I so appreciate that there are listeners that are really helpful and supportive. But after like the third one, even though they might have all sent it within 8 seconds of each other, by the third one, I'm like, yeah, I got it. Yeah, if I got
Right,
it.
right.
I got it. I got it. I got it. I got it. You don't have to do this. Yes, this giant
Yeah.
Batman movie's coming out. I heard. I did hear. But also, that's so nice of them.
And that's such an interesting feedback thing, is that I found that sometimes people will present a tip or a feedback with the initial part of like, I'm sure everybody's been telling you this. And the people who have like that awareness are often telling me something I haven't actually heard about yet or is like new. And then the people who are just sending a very, I guess you'd call it basic tip,
Yeah.
they usually don't have that awareness, and they're just like, hey, there's gonna be a Batman movie. And you're like, I know about Batman movies.
Yeah.
Thank you.
You know, Alex, gelato isn't technically ice cream. I didn't know that.
Yeah.
I know the point of your show. I get it. I think I get the gist. Has there been anything that you were just like, I can't even make this as fascinating? Or is the point of the show that
Uh,
you're like, dryer lint is fascinating, and here's why. You could start campfires with it. You know, like, is there anything that you kind of hit a wall on and you're just like, man, like,
there's two different obstacles, but the short answer is really no. Pretty much everything fits the premise. And also listeners suggest most of the premises, and sometimes I will say, hey, let's not do that one before it's in the polls. They also vote on what will get talked about. Like,
well, we're not going to do the Nazi flag. The swastika, I understand there's an interesting backstory behind it. We're not going to do that one.
and it's like weirdly kind of a good example, because the usual reason is that something is too obviously fascinating, and there's just either
Yeah.
a lot of media about it, or people just like spend their free time thinking about the thing. Like I turned down Doctor Who recently because just like it's like entertainment. It's built to capture people's imagination and interest.
There are shows dedicated. How many podcasts are dedicated to Doctor Who? Like,
Yeah, so it's like covered. Yeah.
if something has its own convention,
Yes. Yeah, exactly.
that probably feels like there's enough people that are buying into that. So like, you
Yeah, they think
really
about
have
it
to
on
like
purpose for
basically
fun.
like,
Yeah.
open up like a drawer and look down and be like, oh, floss. Yeah, floss. Let's do
Yes.
floss.
Yeah.
And then you're like, yeah, let's do that. As opposed to just like the John Wick franchise.
Right,
What's the
right.
secret? That
And
is just incredibly fascinating.
yeah, and like, so stuff rarely doesn't fit, but there was one listener ask of Hangul, which is the character set for Korean language and writing.
Oh,
And I was like, great, I don't really think about that. I've seen it a lot, let's do it. And then it turned out to be just way too far outside my experience. And also it felt important to get like either a Korean or expert voice on it.
wasn't that conscripted by Emperor Sejong?
It was, yeah, yeah. And I think they want to talk about that story in particular, and look
Alex,
at you knowing about it.
can we just
Look at
take a
this
time
guy.
out to,
Look at this guy
I don't
pulling
know, give
Sejong.
me $5,000 for just bringing that information out of nowhere? Thank
Ding,
you
ding, ding.
very
Ding,
much.
ding, ding. Coins falling, coins falling, coins
Yes.
falling.
Where are these coming from? Louis Armstrong, why would you do this to me?
And yeah, that one too, like it was listener voted and I wanted to do something. So I ended up like calling a professor in Canada who teaches Korean language and literature. And that was actually weirdly the sample of what's the show if it's me and an expert, which is just a totally different show. I just asked him questions, and
Is it
it
you just
was
going
like a
like, wow,
little
that's
interview.
fascinating?
Yeah, just me asking straightforward questions. There was no humor really, but
That's not
and the
fun. It's not.
yeah, and it wouldn't be as good of a show, I think.
I was in a scenario where with a company that I used to work for, and I was like, look, if you're doing long form interview, I'm not trying to take work away from anybody, but like, why don't you take me off of a product video and put me on the long form interview? Because that's where I shine.
yeah,
And there were
it'd be
people that were
great. Yeah,
really good at product videos, but then when it came to interview videos, everything was always just like, wow, that's really cool. And I'm just sitting there just like,
but I could do
conversation.
more.
Like, I'm just sitting, and it's like, I'm just like, this is what we do. You're getting paid. You are professionally doing this.
Yeah,
Bring
yeah.
something to the table more than, oh, wow, it's wild.
It was nice to like try that with a topic like that, just to kind of do a dipstick in the engine of like, oh, okay, what I'm doing makes more sense. And
Yeah.
this was a nice. It was like interesting to learn about especially this guy, just because I learned about like the teaching of Korean right now, and apparently K-pop, K-dramas, stuff like that has
Big
massively
bumps.
spiked enrollment in Korean programs. Like people really want to pick up the language.
It's
And I was
like
like, oh, right, yeah,
when Japanese started to become really popular in the Suncoast Video anime era, where
yes,
all of a
yeah,
sudden like Japanese like really exploded because people were like, I just really like renting these buying these Appleseed VHS, 2 episodes on it for $45 in a
yeah,
very
yeah,
cumbersome VHS container that is bigger than all the other ones I have. It's going to
yeah.
be
And
an
then
anime podcast from now on.
and like the closest the other obstacle, like the closest anything has come to being truly uninteresting was one element of research for an episode you and Adam guested on about the color blue. Like, I just tried to learn about the song Blue by Eiffel
And
65.
then you find out it was nothing.
It
It's
was
just
absolutely nothing.
gibberish.
Yeah. And there's a 20-minute long Vice News video where nothing interesting happens about the whole origins and situation of the song. It's
We
the most
talked
boring
about
thing I've
this,
ever
I think,
seen. It
because
might have
I
come up. Yeah.
believe we had this conversation where the most incredibly fascinating thing about that song is it hit its absolute peak at the turn of the millennium.
Yeah,
And
sure.
that was exactly when one of my very close friends died in a car wreck. And
I shouldn't
that's
laugh. Sorry.
no, it's been a couple years. I mean, we
Right.
even
Turn of
all
the
of us are
millennium.
just like, yeah, Jay got the Y2K bug kind of a thing, like it is what it is. There's nothing we can do about that. We can't undo it. And we're sociopaths. So we laugh at these things or else we cry 24 years later. But like
Yeah, yeah.
the funny part of it is that song was everywhere and
Da-ba-dee,
it's really
da-ba-dee. Yeah.
peppy. And the whole beginning of January, I am just in a spiraling, nightmarish,
Right, right.
like teen. I'm still, I'm what, 18 when that happened. And just like I'm spiraling out of control. It's my first real loss that wasn't like an elderly person that died naturally.
Yeah.
And so like I'm so depressed, and yet I can't escape.
Partly the culture's just
And
dancing.
it's
Yeah.
like, man, I feel like I gotta dance a little bit. Just a little bit.
Right. It's like if something awful happened to you right when Brat Summer kicked in, and everybody's like, Brat Summer! And
Well,
like, okay.
it's also like there's these like there are certain
Apple
there are things
dancing.
that are culturally frozen in amber, right? Like that's a very common thing, right? There are certain
Yeah.
things. If I were to start playing, Butterfly by Crazy Town, you'd be like, "Oh, I'm sorry. I
Sugar
didn't
baby.
know that it was the fall of 2000."
Right.
Like everything's very, if you hear, Faith by Limp Bizkit, you're like 1998 is now buried in my brain.
Yeah.
And those kind of like cultural touchstones really do exist, and like sometimes you can't escape them. And I'll always remember, as like a treat for my graduating class, my principal was just like, and just so you guys can have a little fun on your way out, played Livin' La Vida Loca. I graduated in 1999, and that was the song. That was
Yeah.
the song. And you're just sitting there and you're just like, man, could you imagine that going throughout the course? Because it's not a song that really stuck around. It's just it's frozen in amber. There are songs, Vogue by Madonna. You wouldn't say like, oh, what is this, 1990? You'd be like, oh yeah, Vogue came on. I love this song. Like there are certain songs that are timeless, and that is not
Yeah,
one
yeah.
of them. So it was very just like frozen in amber of me remembering like, and I'm just like, I guess I gotta go start my life now. It's such a, like a
I
different world.
I had a very specific internet job in like the middle of 2012, and so that job was just set to the tune of "Call Me Baby" by Carly Rae Jepsen, which is a totally good song, and she's awesome. But like I
Yeah.
like it's very I know exactly when that song came out and what was going on.
That was actually at that time I was teaching at the time, right? Because I retired in 2012. So that last semester that I worked in, we had a class called literacy. And it was basically the teachers were like, you get to form what literacy means to you. So I treated it as like a literacy of pop culture thing. And we did this whole thing where I would take lyricless music and I would have the kids discuss what the mood and the tone or like, you know,
Cool.
Italian opera. What's happening in this song without understanding what the words are, right? Like, can you interpret
Yeah,
what's
yeah.
actually happening? And we also did
Cool.
the opposite, where we would take modern songs and break them down without music into the poetry, into the lyrics.
That's
And
cool. Wow.
so I was like,
Yeah.
bring in a song that you really like, and we'll break down what the poetry of the song is beyond just the melody. And like 2 different kids brought in that specific song. It was a small class. And I was looking at it, I was just like, okay, well, this is pop music and you're in 8th grade, so this makes sense. But the real poetry of this song is, let's sell some records and have a good time. And I was like,
Yeah, yeah.
sometimes that's all you need out of a song. Sometimes that's the goal of a song, is to make money and sell records and have a good time.
Yeah.
And that
Yeah,
is
that
a
works.
perfect example of that. Yeah. In like a fully
It's just
no
pop.
shade kind of a thing, you know, where it's like, you know, what was the other one? We used to rule the world. That
Oh,
Coldplay
that Coldplay
song.
one. That's a
And
good
like you
song.
look at that and
Yeah.
it's, you know, it's all about, you know, empires crumbling and rebuilding and all this stuff. And then you, which, you know, I prefer the music of Carly Rae Jepsen as to Coldplay. But I was like, I
Yeah.
mean, you could see the poetry in this one right now. And we were like breaking down like lyrics and stuff. And so yeah, it's very, that
Oh,
song
that's
means a
cool.
lot to me because I was trying to break down the lyrics to Call Me Maybe. And I'm like, look, I'm gonna
Right.
level with you guys right now. I'm a 30-year-old man talking to 14-year-olds. Welcome to reality. Some shit's just made to make money and be fun. And hell yeah.
Right. Like even because it was internet, we saw the music video a lot, and the music video is as plainly that thing as the lyrics. Like
Delightful.
it's just her being interested in a guy calling her. And that
Yeah.
like there's not more there, and there doesn't, it's not some kind of symbolic dreamscape or something. It's just what it is. Yeah.
Do you remember when they tried to make a scandal out of the fact that she was 30 and she looked
Yes.
like 19? And they were like, "Huh, did you know she's actually 30?" And everyone's like, that's fine. And they're like, what?
Right.
They're like, yeah, we just love it. We love her. We love every ounce of this woman. And yeah, that's totally okay. And they were like, but TMZ. And they're like, oh, we don't care. And I found that so great that we all culturally banded around this woman to finally not be terrible to women in the public
Yeah. She
for
just,
her.
and I feel like people were like, she's pretending to be young, and we were like, no, she's just a little bit shorter than the average lady
Yeah.
and
And
has
she's
a
brightly
fresh
looking.
face. Like
Yeah.
that's kind of it. Like that's not deception.
Also, she's a performer.
Right.
Like, it's her job to look this way.
Yeah.
That's the one thing that people I always get weirded out when people are like, can you believe Tom Cruise is 60? Yep. Yeah, he has been a millionaire for almost 40 years.
It's like his main job to look that
Yeah.
way. Yeah.
His job is to look that way, be in the best shape in the world, and try to die making a film.
Right.
Yes, of course
Right.
he looks that way.
Yeah. It's unsurprising.
He has a person that cooks his food for him every day.
Yeah.
He just hires different versions of a mom to clean his house, cook his food, to train him.
Yeah.
Oh, I wish I could have Chris Hemsworth body. I don't know, get in a Marvel movie. They'll give you a guy to train with. Other than that, good luck.
Right. Right.
So also don't compare yourselves to celebrities, please. I know that that's like an old
Yeah. There's no
thing to
need.
say, but like, unless you have their money, if you do have their money, chase it down, man. Get them
Yeah.
Thor abs.
And comparison is the thief of joy in general. So,
Yeah,
just
yeah,
in a
yeah.
broader way. Forget it.
But competition is the thief of failure. Alex, I'm very competitive. Do you ever wish you had abs? Did you ever have
I'm
abs?
pretty okay without them.
Yeah.
I'm just like relatively thin, and I was a really skinny kid, and so I think I like briefly had abdominals in the sense of just being extraordinarily thin, and you can kind of see definition that way.
You'd be a perfect candidate for abs then.
Yeah, I could. It's probably plausible. Yeah, I could probably do
That would be so cool if you just were like, just did a 10-week intensive like body weight
it.
thing. And then just out of nowhere posted like the most cheesecake,
Right.
ripped, oiled up, glistening Alex. Like,
Right.
honestly,
Did
like,
he get cast as something?
yeah.
Like what
Is
happened? It's
Alex in a
like I'm
Marvel
taping a
movie?
podcast at home. Nope.
People assume I'm an actor. And I'm like, no, I actually find acting a very silly thing. Like, what do you do? I'm like, I talk about Batman for money. Not nearly as silly as playing make believe, of course. I
Yeah.
talk about the
When
people that make believe.
I'm also a big shirt on person. I feel like some people are stoked to just pop their shirt off once it's warm out and be outside and stuff, you know? And I just rather have a shirt on in general.
I'm perpetually ashamed of my body because
Okay.
society has
Why?
destroyed my brain. But when I'm home, there is nary a shirt to be worn in the valley of California,
Nice.
Southern California. But that's mostly like
It's adaptive.
I'm
Yeah.
wearing an Otter Pops tank top right now. I don't mind the shoulders getting visible, but I'm very like
That's what that is.
Otter
That
Pops.
logo is joy.
So it's
Gosh.
a little Louis Blue Raspberry, Little Orphan Orange, and what's the lime guy? Lime guy. Limestein or some bullshit. I don't know. Alex, I don't know if you knew this, but I have producers. I have a Patreon. It's at patreon.com/Jeff May. You
Yes.
guys, if you're listening to this, you
Good job,
know,
guys.
first, then you're on the Patreon. And I like you. If you're listening for free, I like you too. Thank you so much for listening. I like the patrons more than you. It's not a personal thing. It's just that
No, that makes sense.
yeah, like
They're
give me
great.
money. Give me money. No, but you can head on over to patreon.com/Jeff May, get early access to uncensored episodes with bonus content so you can hear all the swears that Alex Schmidt said today. But on top of that, you can be a producer. You can get stuff in the mail. I send people baseball cards and stuff in the mail. It's really fun. You can become a producer. And Alex, I'm going to read off some producer names. And we're going to start out with a name that came in like 5 minutes before we started recording this episode, which is Funky J Mostly comes out at night. Mostly. Sir Isaac Lime. He's not a producer, but Sir Isaac Lime is the name of the Lime Otter Pop.
Folks don't know, I chatted Jeff a screenshot I just took of the Otter Pops website. Apparently his name is Sir Isaac Lime, and he holds a little telescope sometimes, like as a prop.
Now that I think about it, all the names are pretty bad for Otter Pops.
Oh.
I like Poncho Punch. He might be racist. So maybe Poncho Punch might have calmed down a little bit because Poncho Punch looked like a bandit. He looked like a real Speedy Gonzalez, bandit style character. And I don't know, they probably shouldn't have had like a little
yeah.
And
you know what? So it's a green otter, right? They could have gone a lot of ways with the name. The bio makes him very, very British. I think it's like a Sir Isaac Newton thing. They say he has a British accent.
Oh, does Sir Isaac Lime, you think it might be a Sir Isaac Newton thing, Alex?
Yeah, but like, does that mean it's a limey jab, right? Like British people are limeys? Is this racist?
If that were the case,
toward British people?
So funny. You know where that nickname comes from, right?
The Navy, right?
Yeah, scurvy.
Yeah.
Scurvy. So when they would get into port, they would hunt down citrus fruit so they could not get scurvy. Look at that. So yeah, hey, this show is brought to you by Funky J Mostly comes out at night. Mostly. Shout out to the Enchanted Wandering Unpierced Left Nipple Cider served at room temperature. You got it. Shout out to Call Me Sean or whatever. Shout out to the Oatmeal Savage. Alex, are you an oatmeal guy?
I do like oatmeal, yeah.
Do you like a cold overnight oat or do you like a nice hot hearty oat?
I like both. And my wife just found an influencer. His name's Trace, sorry. And Trace's Oats is his account, and he makes amazing baked oatmeal recipes where you can put in Nutella, and we got some of the cookie butter made of the Biscoff cookies. It's amazing stuff.
I hate that. Now I'm going to tell you why. You're bringing too much in oatmeal.
Yeah, it's definitely elevated. Yeah,
oatmeal should be less of a colloid than what I'm seeing from this. That sounds to me like you're making a colloidal oatmeal, which would be a great way to prevent if all those guys drinking colloidal silver made colloidal oatmeal. I like oatmeal where you just throw some shit in it. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like where you just have like some plain, the Barbara Bush cylinder of oats, and you make them, and then you just throw random dried items in there. That's good. You go to like a sundries kind of area and you get some like trail mix and then you just whip it in your oatmeal. That's the kind
it's a wonderful base.
I'm a traditionalist. I want to take a fistful of and just throw it in my oatmeal and be like, and that's breakfast. Shout out to watch me use these prehensile nipples to pick up pennies off the floor. A lot of nipple talk in the producer world. I'm not going to lie.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
Shout out to check out this month's Nerd with Dre and Jeff, in which our good friend Logan Trent joined us to talk about
Woo!
syndicated martial arts stunt television spectacular WMAC Masters. It is an
Wow.
absolutely insane television show in our season of unfortunate martial arts. I'm going to give you a little preview to next month. We're doing a movie. I'll announce it right now. So far, we've got the booking, and it should be this way. Surf Ninjas.
Nice.
You ever see Surf Ninjas?
No, never heard of it.
Special guest, Nick Cowan from the movie Surf Ninjas. You never heard of Surf Ninjas?
No, I feel like I understand it.
It's the, Ernie Reyes Jr. So after Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles 2, The Secret of the Ooze, do you remember Kino?
I saw that movie once very long ago.
Karate
I don't
Kid.
know.
Alex, damn it. Stop learning and start rotting your brain, man. How am I supposed to relate to you? You're just getting smarter. Get dumber like I am. Anyway, that's going to be a good one.
That's awesome.
Shout out to Normal Man Andrew McGuire. Shout out to Dan Hackroyd. Shout out to Norm from Cheers.
Norm.
He's great.
Yeah.
Did you do Kansas City with us? We toured?
Yeah, once. Yeah.
Yeah, you met Norm. I'm pretty sure you met Norm.
Okay, I think so. I like to say Norm just because they say Norm when Norm comes into the bar on Cheers.
I don't know what you're talking about. What is that? That's what I say to this guy.
It's like Secret of the Ooze, but in a bar in Boston.
I have not seen the movie. All right. Shout out to Dan Adamski, world's humblest man. Shout out to Bart Fardigan. Shout out to Lemming Malloy returns. Shout out to the Tubi Terror Bunny, says the strike may be over, but egg Bob Iger anyway, because him. Sure. This isn't a Disney property
great.
yet. Once I'm bought by Disney, though, you guys, it's over. Shout out to Mr. Billy Beck. Shout out to Burrito. Shout out to Aldo Vargas is adding Jeff Has Cool Friends producer to his resume, which you all have permission to do. Give him my number. I'll answer it. You're damn right they're a producer. Best damn producer I've ever had. Shout out to that scene in Lost City where Brad Pitt dies. Shout out to the ghost of Dave Thomas. And shout out to, I'm going to start calling Yoda Old Grogu just to see what happens. And again, you can head over to patreon.com/Jeff May, where I can say pretty much anything you want within reason. And you know, it's cheap promotion, if anything. So we get that going for us. Alex, I didn't realize the regular episode is almost about to wrap. I got so wrapped up in you, but I have so many more questions. And I'm going to ask.
I definitely butted in with Otter Pops as well. So it's partly me.
That's what the show's about, man. My friends are Louis Blue Raspberry and Sir Isaac Lime and Little Orphan Orange.
Yeah.
Stupid names. I love Otter Pops, but now I'm thinking about it. Those are some lazy names, man.
Yeah, they really didn't go very hard on that. Yeah.
I'm going to talk
art's good.
about how I have found inspiration from you. You actually inspired the structure of this show without even realizing it.
I didn't know that.
I am a thief. I am a person who robs from his friends. I'm like a Robin Hood, but if they were addicted to meth, right? Like I rob from my friends and I give it to the people out there. I stole the reading the producer names from Gamefully Unemployed. I mean, it seemed like, you know, I know they didn't invent that, but whatever. But what I did steal from you was editing cursing out of the free episode of the podcast.
Yeah, cool.
And I did a twist though, Alex.
I think I know.
Do you? Have you heard the swear cuts?
Yeah, the swear cut, because it comes up on the feed. Yeah.
Yeah. So all the cursing that's taken out of the episode is then thrown into the swear cut, and you get like a 1.5 to 2 minute just curse fest. And
yeah, people
weirdly love it. It's just like a very fun, delightful thing to do. And you inspired that.
I'm glad. Yeah.
Because, and is this the case? Are Adam and I the most dangerous combination of guests you have language wise?
Up there, but it's been an interesting thing because at least with a few listeners, a few cases, I have successfully been able to calibrate SIFs so that relatively precocious children can enjoy it. And it's partly that they know that it's a clean listed show or whatever. But then if they can keep up with the information, it's like I've been making the podcast that I've always wanted to hear. And I think as a young person, I would have felt the same about it. And so That's the main reason for removing swears, and otherwise it's not a issue to me at all. They're fine, you know.
Oh, I do it to punish people for not giving me money. Somebody actually gave me a like a 4-star review and they docked a star because of the editing. And I'm like, well, I want to make it all ages. And you
Yeah,
can't you get buried if you don't do that. And also come on over to the Patreon. We you get it early and we say
exactly.
so much. Alex, say
And
no.
I because I think I said earlier.
Oh
I
yeah.
was asking myself, like, have I provided anything to the edit? I think I have. I don't
There
know
have
if
been
Dick gets
ones where
bleeped,
like the
but
title has been like, you know, like this person doesn't swear, and it's just me being like, it's been really fun. I do think about that a lot because, you know, I know why you do the show, and obviously we knew that you edited it. So Adam and I just kind of were the bad boy, is kind of a thing.
yeah, yeah.
Afterwards, I was like, well, are we this show over? And I think I asked you that. I was like, do you want us to actively try not to swear? And you're like, I think you said something like, well, you could tone it down, but you don't have to, which was like such an Alex
Right.
answer to be like, I sure would like it if you did.
Because I the thing is, it's an interesting like producing challenge. There's not a separate producer or anything. I'm just making it. But I feel like when asking people to like work clean, you'd call it,
Yeah.
you don't want them to be so in their heads about it that they're not having fun for one thing, but also that they're not able to like be the best performer they can be. So that's the other reason to not like push it hard, not just politeness. Is like I don't want you to be like so on edge about it. You being broadly guests, not just you. Like I don't want people to be so on edge about it that they can't like function and have fun. That would be a worse show.
Yeah. And that's, I want to make it a worse show in a different way. You know what I'm saying? See, we
Other forms of sabotage.
the way I
Yes.
figure it, some people will be listening to those shows and be like, man, those guys are cool. It's the equivalent of smoking on a podcast, right? Like,
I was gonna say we should just tell them, and we're all smoking,
yeah,
and
we
they
are
can't
smoking
see. Yeah,
cigarettes while we
yes.
say this. It definitely has actually like guy outside of a Dunkin' Donuts in Boston, you know, like hanging outside. Man, raisins, man, they're fascinating, kid. You don't even
Yeah.
know. That would be a very funny way to do the show. Is if you
Yeah.
were doing it like as just like some dirtbag dock worker that was be like, you know, you'd never believe how incredibly fascinating Honeydew Melon's at, kid. It's wild.
Right. I mean,
Bananas, kid. Jesus.
it, it's almost like Cliff Clavin on Cheers, but if he actually knew stuff. Yeah, and it was just
Hey, you know, the
listing,
Honeydew
and you're
Melon.
like, oh, I want to hear from Cliff now. This
Yeah.
is cool. Yeah.
Hey, you know, pineapples actually grow on bushes. I don't know if you knew that. There's no such thing as a pineapple tree. That's pretty crazy if you think about it. Very incredibly fascinating.
and
I
I'm
mean,
and I'm honored. Like I love that any bleeping was able to influence it because you do a great show. So and that's an actual evolution of it to make the swear cut too. That's really cool.
yeah, it is. It is also funny because you're doing it because like I do want to protect the listeners and I want them to be like, I want kids to want to do this and learn. And I'm just like, I want to punish people that do not give me money to listen to this. Not really, freeloaders. I do love you very much. And I know I talk about you derogatively, but
Yeah.
that's only because I'm hungry.
Yeah, it's freeloader as a term of endearment. Yeah.
Yes, it is. It is. We're going to talk about some more stuff in the Bone Con. We got some Bone Con coming, including we're going to do a little Jeopardy talk, as one
Ooh.
does. I know. It's
Ooh.
just it, you know, that's
Buzzing in.
the
Buzzing in.
$100,000 gorilla in the room that you know we bring up is that as well. So what I do want to say is you guys should absolutely check out Secretly Incredibly Fascinating, the maximumfun.org/podcast/secretly dash incredibly dash fascinating will get you there, or just Google Secretly Incredibly Fascinating and that's the first thing that'll come up. Really great show. It's been a great
Thanks.
show for, you know, at this point in time, what we're talking 6 years?
I like 4. Yeah. We
Nope,
just had episode
6.
200 a few weeks ago. Or 6. Yeah.
6.
You're feeling right.
We're
Yeah.
padding the stats because 2 of those years were pandemic years. And so
Oh,
they
that's
aged
true.
more.
Yeah, it's like 4 years and 3 eras, basically. Yeah.
Alex, what else should we be telling the people to check out? What else is there that we can go for here?
And this is very kind of you. We're gonna do a live episode of the podcast in London,
Oh,
which
I
is very
prob-
exciting. Yeah, because if people don't know, Katie Golden lives in Italy. She's an American, but lives in Italy, so we can meet in the middle in London. And we're also going to have
In the
Robin
Middle.
Ince as a guest. Robin Ince is an amazing British podcaster and comedian.
That's awesome. Maybe Ethan
Yeah,
Lawrence will come and watch. We love Ethan Lawrence. He's
that'd be
British.
great.
He's
Yeah,
British.
I hope Ethan Lawrence comes. Yeah,
Bro, who else is British that listens to this? Doc Garby? I think Doc is British.
yeah,
He's
yeah.
British, love.
And the other, I don't know when this comes out, but we're seeing if we can stream the show on the internet. And so that also might be an option for people who are free Sunday, September 8th and just want to watch a good show.
I love that vibe. So this, if you are on the Patreon, this episode goes up on August 27th. And if you're a freeloader, Tuesday, the 3rd of
Great. Yeah.
September. So when are you heading to London?
I'm going to travel, land like the 7th, and then do the show on the 8th. So
Well,
yeah.
Cheerios.
Yeah. And it's like afternoon British time, so a reasonable time in the US time zones.
Oh, yeah. You're doing a podcast the day after you land?
Yeah, I know. I'm a road warrior. Yeah.
You're an air warrior.
Oh, true. Very few roads. Air and trains, yeah.
All roads lead to London. Literally not outside of that one island, if we're being 100% honest. You should take the Concorde. I heard that's great.
Is that still going?
It is
I
not.
don't know. Yeah.
You and Elton John. That is crazy that we
I'll
had
take the Titanic instead. I'll go that way to England.
It's crazy that we had the Concorde and then we were like, but also
Right. It's
like,
kind
but
of
it was like you'd get across the Atlantic in like 2 hours or something.
Yeah,
Like you were
my
flying.
understanding is that it was like too fast and polluted or something. I don't
was
know
a
why we
missile.
stopped.
Yeah, you were just putting Elton John in a missile and sending him to New York.
He was asking for it with that song, right? The rocket song. So
yeah,
you know,
I'm a Concorde
here's
man.
your rocket. Yeah.
Great pinball machine, by the way.
So have we talked about this? I
We
live
can
in
talk-
Beacon, New York. There is one arcade here, and like a couple of weeks ago, they got the Elton John pinball machine.
It is a wonderful game.
It's
is
really
actually
good.
It's my favorite Jersey Jack pinball machine of all time, and it's
Okay,
not
cool.
close. It's like that company, their Toy Story machine. I hate their Toy Story machine. Like a lot of their stuff, I just don't like. Sometimes that
Cool.
happens. Sometimes companies design things in ways that I'm like, oh, I don't like this. That is like such a good game, and it's such a great use of the property as well. So I'm really glad you have that.
Yeah.
So definitely check out Elton John at the
Right.
London Podcast
That's my
Festival.
plug.
That's secretly incredibly fascinating.
Play Elton John.
Yeah.
Yeah. But it's a joy making the show, and Jeff has guested wonderfully on it before. He was on the 3rd episode ever, and many others too.
Yeah, Adam and I for a while were the color boys until you realized you didn't want to have just 2 people represent all colors on your show. And we were like, that makes sense. I was like, I'm a little insulted, but also I totally get it. But also you took us off on Pink. It's my favorite Aerosmith song. Can't believe you would do that to us. Do you know what you're going to be talking about? Have you already done all the research for it?
I have not done very much of the research, but the London episode will be about weasels. So I don't really have any facts to share right now, but it's a really interesting topic and fun.
You want to know something weird? When I was
What?
a little kid, I was actually afraid of the Looney Tunes weasel.
Is there which character is a weasel?
It was a Foghorn Leghorn.
Oh, like a side character in that.
I believe it was. And there was something about the way he moved and interacted, and his eyes were like really buggy. And if you just look up Foghorn Leghorn Weasel, you'll see it. Like just Google. I could send you the link, but you are there. And it was just like this weirdly scary character to me. When I'm talking young, I'm talking like 3-4 years old.
Yeah,
and I was just terrified of him because he was trying to eat the characters as well. But he looked like when Large Marge loses her shit on Pee-wee in the truck. That's the way his eyes were. And I was like, I don't want this.
And look how far you've come. You're comfortable with Otter Pop characters now, you know?
That's how we go. That's how it goes. So why did you choose weasels?
They are I think it really leverages Katie's science and animal knowledge well. The one other live episode I've done was about raccoons. That went over very well. It was very fun. And it's also, I think, a topic that is fun for a lot of different places. I with live episodes of this premise, I really like to do something that's at least a little relevant to the area. And between real life and also fiction like Redwall, I feel like weasels and England, it somehow connects in my mind.
I always wonder about the difference in badgers between England and the
Mm.
United States. I don't know if you've ever seen that meme where
Oh
it's
no.
like British badgers look like they're about to enjoy a nice little spot of tea with you, and American badgers look like they're going to try to kill your family.
Cool. Yeah. It sounds like us.
Yeah. If you are a British, definitely check him out, bruv. Thank you. That's my Chicago accent. I'm trying
That's
to.
right.
But Alex,
Navy Pier, ain't it? Wrigley Field.
it's
The
Wrigley
old
Field,
two
in it.
train.
Oh, there's some ivy on there, in it.
Giordano's.
We've got the diabetes from eating all the hot dogs, mate. These hot dogs are stupid. Sorry, the area's hot dogs are very stupid. The famous hot dog.
I actually don't like that. Yeah, I just have mustard and onions. Yeah.
Yeah, that's fine.
Yeah. I don't want
It's
the whole
the
garden.
it's the yeah, it's I think I did a show in Chicago where I said that Chicago hot dog is the closest this area has to a salad.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because they're just like, what else is a vegetable? Is relish a vegetable? Not unless it's nuclear colored. All right, there. I don't know why I had to do like a Jersey accent on that one. Why don't we put a little celery salt there? Because, there's not enough salt in a hot dog. Why don't we get a little more sodium in there for the intake, huh?
Yeah, yeah.
Alex, you are found on Instagram, I believe, at Alex Schmidtstagram. Is that correct?
Yes. Yeah.
So you guys,
And I'm Alex Schmidt on TikTok, and I post short videos both places.
you have I was going to save that for the bonus content, but you have a lovely online presence. So
Oh, thank you.
talk more about that. Well, hey, if you are listening to this for free, thank you so much. If you're listening to this on the Patreon,
Yeah.
stick around. I like you a little bit more. But hey, freeloaders, head on over to patreon.com/JeffMay. I have so many different kinds of tiers where you can get stuff in the mail. You can produce podcasts. You can produce different shows. You can have a friggin' blast. We got lots of great shows, including early access to uncensored episodes of bonus content of this show, as well as shows like Nerd and Ugh Fine with Kim Crawl. Really, really fun times. I do a lot of stuff with Adam Todd Brown on the You Don't Even Like Podcasts Network. Like You Don't Even Like Sports, which Alex,
That's what I hear.
Yeah,
That's what I hear.
heard that. You are very cruel to me about that. And of course, Tom and Jeff watch Batman on the Gamefully Unemployed Network. I have a great YouTube channel called Jeff Has Cool Cards, where I open packs of cards every Wednesday afternoon, and I do like mailbag stuff on Fridays, and sometimes Dre does a break on Monday nights. It's really fun. Dre like runs my YouTube account, and he's amazing, by the way.
Oh,
He doesn't just co-host
Yeah.
Nerd. He also like makes sure all this shit's in order on YouTube, because boy, is that a weak spot for me.
Okay. Yeah.
When I say a weak spot, I mean just stuff. Stuff is a weak spot for me. We'll see you in a couple weeks with the next cool friend. Stick around if you're a patron, because I'm going to spend some time with Alex and we're going to talk about some stuff. Okay, bye. Hey, everyone. Our artwork is created by Justin T. Brown, who can be found at Artness by Justin Brown on Instagram, as well as artnessbyjustinbrown.com. That dope music you heard is by Troy Nababon, available at Troy Nababon on Instagram, as well as at troynababon.com. Nababon is spelled Nababa.